Time now for a look at the day's top business news with Brian Quinn. Brian, you're starting with signs of progress in de-escalating some of Donald Trump's many trade battles.
Indeed, and we'll start with the biggest of those confrontations between the U.S. and China. Formal negotiations are set to take place Friday through Monday in Switzerland, attended by Chinese Vice Premier Li Yifeng and U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The Trump administration has hiked its tariffs on Chinese goods up to 145%, China retaliating with 125% tariffs on U.S. imports. This week's meeting will be the first high-level one between the two sides since Trump's inauguration. There has been little official contact since Trump unveiled his Liberation Day tariffs on trading partners around the world. Since then, U.S. businesses have been warning of a potential supply shock as shipping activity between Asia and the U.S. has nearly ground to a halt. Economists, meanwhile, sounding the alarm on a looming recession in the U.S. Beijing has until now declined to engage with Washington, despite Trump's recent claims that talks were ongoing. The president on Tuesday once again tried to insist he's negotiating from a position of strength. Here he is.
They want to meet, and they're doing no business right now. And those ships are turning around in the Pacific Ocean. And by not trading, we're losing nothing. So we're saving $1 trillion. It's a lot. But they want to negotiate, and they want to have a meeting, and we'll be meeting with them at the right time.
Meanwhile, the US and the UK are reportedly closing in on a trade deal of their own.
Indeed, the Financial Times reports that Washington and London have made progress on a deal that would limit some of the damage from those Liberation Day tariffs, in part via quotas for British automobile and metals exports that would allow them to avoid some of the 25% tariffs that Trump has imposed on both sectors worldwide. Britain is trying to get those 25% levies reduced overall as well. In return, its officials have reportedly offered to ease the UK's digital services tax on American tech firms, as well as cut tariffs on American cars and agricultural exports. Progress on U.S. farm exports will necessarily be limited, however, as the UK is still refusing to accept American chlorine-washed chicken and hormone-fed beef, both of which would complicate the UK's efforts to harmonize its food safety regulations with the EU. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he expects a number of deals to be announced in the coming weeks. Here he is.
Perhaps as early as this week, we will be announcing trade deals with some of our largest trading partners. They have come to us with very good offers. And what I will tell you is that in negotiating with some of them, they may not like the tariff wall that President Trump has put up, but they have them. So if tariffs are so bad, why do they like them?
Okay, well, happening on the stock markets, Brian?
Asian indexes mixed on Wednesday. In fact, Karis, Hong Kong and Shanghai are gaining after China announced new economic stimulus measures to prop up its domestic economy, which was already struggling even before Trump's renewed trade war. The country's central bank is cutting key interest rates and reducing capital reserve requirements for commercial banks. Those moves should encourage borrowing and inject roughly $140 billion in additional liquidity into Chinese markets there. Here in Europe, major indexes opening mixed as well, mostly on the negative side, with the pharma sector in particular losing ground. London and Paris both in the red. Investors now waiting for the latest interest rate decision from the U.S. Federal Reserve due out later in the day.
And finally, for business, here in France, the recent rise in price of cryptocurrencies has come with a rise in crypto crime, Brian.
It has, and we are not just talking about typical securities fraud or even cyber scams, but rather violent kidnappings targeting influencers and moguls in the sector. Last week, the father of a French crypto millionaire was held captive for 2 days in his home as criminals demanded millions of euros in ransom. A similar incident earlier in the month saw criminals actually cut the finger off of their kidnapped victim. Matthew-Marie Carochet and our colleagues at France Télévisions report.
This crypto millionaire built a following on social media, but is abandoning it after the attempted kidnapping of his wife.
Today I'm hyper-vigilant and stressed for my family. There was no solution except to quit social media.
French cryptocurrency investors are increasingly worried after a dozen extortion attempts in the past year. Each time, criminals kidnapped loved ones and demanded ransoms. In 2022, a man with a gun broke into the home of a founder of Maria, one of France's leading crypto investment platforms. His partner says the company now takes intense security precautions.
We have bodyguards for the whole team, and they wear civilian clothes. We have instructions to take different routes and to modify our homes with secure parking. Everything is under video surveillance. We even stopped walking down the street wearing clothes known to be related to crypto.
Avec un vêtement qui est synonyme de crypto.
One company specializes in the virtual and physical protection of entrepreneurs. The boss says he's getting more and more customers.
Right now, they're all coming to terms with the situation and starting to monitor all the data out there about them.
He wants to discourage criminals by changing the reputation of cryptocurrencies as easy to steal.
Transactions should be secured, thereby disabling any physical pressure on an individual.
French police have arrested several hitmen in connection with recent extortion attempts, but the masterminds behind the attacks are still at large.
Cryptocurrency has always been a risky investment, apparently especially so in France, Karis.
Indeed. Brian Quinn, thank you very much for that business update.